Hi, how are you? How's everything? Yeah.
Okay, I'd like to welcome everybody to East Dundee's Village Board meeting of the trustees, the regular meeting dated Monday, October 7th, 2024. I've got 6:03. Catherine, will you take the roll?
Trustee Mahoney.
Here.
Trustee Coonsey.
Present.
Trustee Britton. Trustee Saviano. Here. Trustee Triber.
Here.
Trustee Sauter.
Here.
And President Lino.
Here. And if you'll rise with me for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you. That'll take us to our public comment section. Is there anyone in the audience who'd like to address the board on an agenda or a non-agenda item? Seeing none, then we will move on. Do we have announcements? No. Okay. Then that'll take us right into our consent agenda. It's a big one, so if I could have a motion?
I'll move to accept the warrants list in the amount of $1,867,311.82. I will move to approve a resolution authorizing the village to execute change order number 1 to the contract with Albrecht Enterprises, Inc. for the demolition of 2 and 4 North Van Buren Street. I'll move to approve an ordinance amending Village Code, Section 157.224 and 37.09 to initiate administrative adjudication proceedings for special use violations. I'll move to approve an ordinance amending sections 157.207 and 157.224 of the zoning ordinance regarding certain special use and variation procedures and requirements. I will move to approve a resolution adopting the civility pledge. I will move to approve an ordinance amending sections 116.05, repealing sections 137.05, and creating a new chapter 123 of the Village of East Dundee Village Code regarding video gaming regulations. I will move to give advice and consent to the appointment of Erica Storley to the Police Pension Board of Trustees with a term expiring October 7th, 2026, and I will move to approve an updated public comment policy.
Second.
Okay, are there any questions, discussions, items we want?
Well, I guess my question is, seeing as they've already done this work at 2 North Van Buren, what happens if we actually turn this down?
Yeah, it's a little, cart before the horse kind of thing. I know, I saw that too.
I'd like to remove item F regarding the video gaming. I'd like to discuss that one more time, make sure I'm clear on things.
Okay.
Well, since we've already made that motion, do we have to do anything to take it out?
Well,
I thought there was discussion.
we could just discuss it
So-
without voting on it first.
Yes, so if you want to discuss it, you pull it to discuss and outside of consent, you should just move to amend the motion to approve the consent agenda presented with item.
Okay.
F removed.
Yeah. Okay, I will,
Amend
You
your
don't have to
motion.
say it all again.
No.
what's that?
Motion.
I don't have to read all of them again?
No.
Can I, though?
Yeah.
I will amend my motion to eliminate item F from the consent agenda.
Second.
We don't need an amendment on the second the first time around, do we?
No, now you can just
Okay.
vote on the consent agenda as a.
Okay. Then the floor is open. Kathleen, did you want to take this one, or?
No,
Erica,
first
did
we
you
need
wanna-
to vote on the consent agenda,
Oh,
then
on
we
the
talk
other
about
ones.
the others.
Okay.
And
We'll do
approving,
that
correct?
then.
And approving the consent.
Thought we
Yeah,
did.
so the
Approving.
vote now
Bring-
the vote is to, on the motion.
All right.
Which is, the motion is to approve the consent agenda as, with item F.
I've removed, okay. And if there's no other items or questions then on any of the items? Okay, Catherine?
Trustee Coonsey.
Yes.
Trustee Saviano.
Yes.
Trustee Triber.
Yes.
Trustee Sauter.
Yes.
And Trustee Mahoney.
Yes.
Okay, now item F. Kathleen, did you have specific questions, or did you just want to review on it? Erica could run through this?
Yeah, so,
So do we have to make this motion?
I'm looking, I just want to recap some of the changes that you had in here. So increasing the terminal fees per fee from $250 a year for the calendar year to $500 a year for the calendar year. And establishing a 6-month waiting period before the gaming license can be approved at any new establishment. So basically, where we have a lot of establishments coming in saying they want to open something and they want to have gaming, we're saying, sorry, come back to us after you're open for 6 months. Is that my understanding correct?
Yes.
Well, people could apply at any time once they
Mhm.
have, established a liquor license. But then the authorization for the gaming wouldn't be effective until 6-month mark. So they could put their ducks in a row and get ready
Right.
so that at 6 months they could start. But it would preclude people from having it on day one of opening.
Okay, can I ask then, what's the problem with that? We've got one establishment in particular in our downtown that's been waiting for a while,
And that establishment has been open for more than 6 months and would be eligible
Okay.
tomorrow. It's only, so when this was discussed at last meeting or 2 meetings ago, the consensus and the direction to staff was to craft the ordinance with the 6-month waiting period in place so that there would be some incentive to put forward a business that could survive on its own without solely relying on video gaming revenue for survival.
Okay.
Can I ask a question? Oh, unless you had a follow-up on that.
No, go ahead.
In the previous packet, we had a survey of all the other towns and their fees. Some of them had a per video game terminal fee that had, like, say, Elgin has $1,500 D and then $25 E. Do you know what the D and E is for these other towns that have 2 tiers of pricing?
Caleb, do you want to speak to that one?
Yes. So, the table that you're referring to, it is establishment and the distributor of the terminals of the consoles.
Oh, so you can set a price for the establishment, the bar, and then the distributor is the video game company installing them?
So, to my knowledge, and please correct me if I'm mistaken, there was a law passed where the fees had to be shared equally by the distributor and the establishment. Those ones where they're not equal, they were grandfathered in apparently, like they had that on their books when that was passed. So if we implement new things, it would have to be shared equally.
Gotcha. Thank you. And then the other thing, noticing that, like we were at the lowest end of pricing before, now we're kind of towards the middle, but some are more like $1,000 per terminal, like in Palatine and $750 in Carpentersville. I was wondering if does anybody else have any thoughts on the 500 being a good spot if we're trying to reduce them a bit, then maybe going a little bit higher is what I'm thinking, to reduce them a bit, especially when the revenue for the average bar is almost 20 to 40,000 a month that it's generated, which they share that profit, so it's more like 10 to 20 grand a month, but I think everyone would still pay off all of the fees within 1 to almost 2 months, even
In
if
2
it was
weeks,
1,000.
actually.
Yeah.
If that's it. Yeah, I'd like to, I think part of the reason why we're looking at this is because there was a moratorium, because there was concern about the number per capita that we have in the village and like way above anything that any other municipality has in the area or in the greater Chicagoland area. So while I agree with Tricia, that I don't want to tell bars and restaurants that what they can and can't have. I also want people to be reasonable, because pretty much everybody that applies for all 5, the max number that they can get. And that's what they want, and they want more. So, and really, where is the balance point for having them, but taking up other space that can be used in the business for some other means. So, I mean, and I think part of that is because they are so cheap. You know, our licenses are so minimal, and we've just spent $7 million on a parking garage for these businesses. People are staying longer. So there's kind of a whole cyclical nature that's going on this. So I would like to see, if not, and I understand there's going to be kind of like a scare tack, you know, like it's going to be a sticker shock kind of thing, going from, you know, 250 to 1,000 or whatever, which would put us in the mean of where other municipalities might be. I would like to see a plan stepped out ladder, so that the businesses that are looking at you know, evaluating how many terminals they have and how many terminals they want to get, what makes the most sense for them, and to maybe step it out where it's $500 this year. In 2026, it goes up to $750. In 2027, it goes up to $1,000 per terminal. So, which I still think is very, very reasonable, or go up to, you know, $750 today and then $1,000 in 2026.
It's 500 now. I don't know if we could necessarily change it on
No.
the floor, but. Oh, of course we can.
Sure we can. We
Yeah,
can amend any
do
of
that
them.
all
We're
the time.
passing the ordinance.
Okay.
We're looking at the ordinance, right?
Yes.
Yeah. That's why I wanted to recap that. Because the moratorium is coming off, and so guess what? What is going to stop the flood other than us? And then we're not going to be fair to one business or another business when we say no to them. No, we have too many.
I'm not a fan of jumping higher than 500 right now. I think that costs are just really high, and I just think it's another thing to choke one of our businesses. I just think we're doubling it already. I think that's fair.
I think
What-
there's something to be said for easing into it,
Yeah,
so,
baby steps to do
Okay.
it.
yeah.
Otherwise, it's too shocking. I don't feel comfortable.
Right. So 500 is okay, but don't go any higher, because that's what we
Correct.
discussed last time.
Yeah.
But then maybe ladder it up, put into the ordinance that would ladder it up to 750.
I don't even think I'd put it in the ordinance right now.
Well, I want to sunset it so we could take a look at it again next year
Yeah, sunset.
You could do that.
at the fee next year.
Just, you know,
First of October.
I mean, the average business is making $10,000 a year on these, a month on these, and we're worried about $250 for a whole
No,
year?
I get that, but you know
That's
what?
the average business, though. It could be really hurting the really small one, you know? I want to look at the whole range,
Yeah,
so
so
that's
maybe,
where I'm coming from.
yeah, so maybe they don't need as many terminals.
We could put it in the budget for 2026, proposed budget, and then the board could evaluate it at
Give a
that
thought
point.
from the audience here.
Yeah, no, you won't be able to speak, Joe. We'll give you a minute in a second. Well, I would actually like to be able to get some more information, because I see what you're saying, and, you know, if they're making, I think there's more information that needs to be sought concerning how the revenue structure of these games, because they're not all making $10,000 or $15,000 per game. I've had the opportunity to sit with some people who are in that business, and in many instances, depending on the game itself and the number of them, they're actually losing money.
See, it's not.
Well, then maybe they
unusual
want
that-
to take, that's not, the village's fault with the
No,
licensing.
it's certainly not, but I'm just saying
Yeah.
that I think it's to suggest that there's, $10,000 per game per month is, I don't know how I can.
I'm not saying per month, per business, per
Oh.
month.
Right, but, so I would like to, I think we should, if we wanted to amend the ordinance that we currently have for the fees that are going, I think easing into it to $250 and then revisiting it a year from now to
We're
to
currently at
suggest changing it.
$250, we'd be
No, I
going to
mean,
$500.
500 rather.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. And then if, like you say, sunsetting it or revisiting it again the 1st of October 2025 or whatever, to explore a change at that point, so that's my 2 cents.
Then we'll have info after the moratorium. We'll see how many people are signing up. We'll see how many
Right.
people are signing up with it being doubled. There's just more data. I think we can make better choices
Yeah.
in a year. Be sunset.
So,
Anybody else?
anybody else? Right. No? Okay, so we want to just add the date in there then? Is everyone all right with that?
And
Yeah, I'm okay with leaving it on revisit next year.
A year from now? Okay.
so adding a sunset that will revisit the fees? Or does that have to be part of the ordinance, or is that just part of something that we do in the background?
You could just make the motion now with that.
Well, we haven't made a motion on this yet.
Right, that's what I'm saying. You can make the motion on it with the, as it
So-
reads, but adding the
I
amendment.
guess the question would be, for, the sunset, it's the ordinance itself, it's amended, the whole scheme of the process for the video gaming. I don't know if you want to include a sunset that would, and be to
Yeah.
make the whole scheme.
The whole program.
Procedure, no longer in full force and effect, or just put something in there, oftentimes the license fees for everything are updated annually, and that's kind of a normal procedure. So instead of doing a sunset, you could add in language that just in that section that the board will review, and, approve the license fees for, video gaming, annually, as part of either a budget review process or just, you just say annually. I think that just might be cleaner than doing a sunset, just because if we're just looking at the fine, we wouldn't want to put anything in there that would, inadvertently repeal the whole, video
Got it.
gaming.
We could also just take a little time and bring it to our next meeting as an item to be voted on then. So, either way.
So if this ordinance is passed tonight, the moratorium is effectively over as of the time of the vote. There's people that are waiting to get these licenses, so my suggestion would be, if you're comfortable with the ordinance in front of you, just pass it, and then we will add reviewing this fees for this item specifically to the agenda schedule for October of next year. So whether we do it as part of the budget or as a standalone, it would be on the agenda schedule.
Okay.
Works for me.
Works for me.
Okay, so Kathleen, would you like to make the motion on this one then? Just,
I have
We'll
to
just-
get up to read it, okay. I will move to approve an ordinance amending section 116.05, repealing section 137.05, and creating a new chapter 123 of the Village of East Dundee Village Code regarding video gaming regulations.
Second.
no questions? Catherine?
Trustee Coonsey?
Yes.
Trustee Saviano?
Yes.
Trustee Triber?
Yes.
Trustee Sauter?
Yes.
And Trustee Mahoney?
Yes.
Okay, that'll take us to the meat of the meeting here, our other agenda items. We'll start with item A, if we could have a motion.
I'll move to approve a special event permit application from Diamond Gyms and Tequila Val's, and the approval of 2 Class F special events liquor licenses and waiver of 50% of the associated fees.
Second.
Okay, any questions? Joe, would you like to get up and kind of give us a quick rundown of what you're planning?
Sure. In a nutshell, I don't know if, good evening, everybody, by the way. I'm Joe Kondo. I own Diamond Gyms. If you guys are familiar with Turkey Testicle Festival in Huntley,
Yeah.
yes, we're trying to do something along those lines, having a special event on what they call Black Wednesday down here in the Dundee area. We have a great downtown area that would facilitate this type of event, I think would go great for the community as well as local businesses in bringing people down here and keep people here instead of having that money going out of town, especially into Huntley, which that has become such a juggernaut out there right now. Going there is a hassle, parking and things like that. To also keep it in this community, as you all have done recently with all the events that have happened here in the depot in the last 8 years that I've been around, and I think this would be something that should be added to also the community, obviously personally on his business side, as well as for Colin and I teaming up to do this project. It is something of a large undertaking as opposed to manpower and cost, but I feel him and I teaming up together to do this event will pull it off quite well, and it'll be something proud for the village and the township to have in their arsenal, so to speak.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, anything we can do to, add to our exposure is a good thing, So, and we don't have, of course, have anything during the month of November, and right before Thanksgiving is a really good idea, so.
I mean, it could be negative 40 degrees that day, I mean,
Well,
God
yeah.
forbid,
You
or it
never
could be
know.
80.
Right, in Chicago otherwise, no, yeah.
I know how packed Turkey Festival gets, and so I think being able to have something new and fresh that has space is awesome. I would love to see people. I know a lot of people that go there for it and then complain about how packed it is. So I think it's perfect to have something here.
Yeah. Great. Is there any other questions anybody has? Scott, Dan, Andy?
So, just another comment to put out there. I'm thrilled about the event.
Thank you.
So, but you've also asked for the village to share in the setup costs the village has, and what the village would provide, which is actually only $910. So, I think, is my understanding correct?
That's in regard to like fencing and things of
Yeah.
that area. Yes, absolutely, that is what we'd ask. I mean, we were willing to pay, for the additional police required for the event that we had talked
Right.
about in the
I
past.
see that in here.
We're just looking at some fencing. You guys had that beautiful white fencing that you use, just to help us coordinate. The tent alone is gonna be $35,000, just to tent it, heat it.
Okay,
Enough
no
said.
problem, no problem.
You sure? Because,
No.
I mean, like I said,
Yeah.
the cost is substantial for
Yeah.
this, to pull off an event of this size, which we want it to be.
Right.
We're anticipating 1,000 people. I mean, to us, that would be a huge success. 500 would be great, but 1,000 is what we're really looking at right now. And just to keep everybody safe and everything controlled, you guys have such great fencing and signage, street closure signs and things of that nature is what we would be asking for.
Chief, did you see any issues with the traffic flow with this or concerns with this over the weekend, holiday weekend? Yeah, and I see Mark's name all over this, so I know you're good to go. Okay, that's all of my questions. Anybody else?
Comment of just thank you for putting this on. We love the downtown events and having the private businesses take on some of that work. It's really appreciated, so.
I mean, we love St. Patrick's Day down here, and I think we could kind of bring something like that into the winter months, and I think it'll benefit all the other businesses as well, being open. It's going to be free flow. You're going to have a wristband, so you're going to be able to exit and enter, go eat at DC Cobb's or go down to Banditos or wherever. It's not just for us. It's to get the people here, and we're going to have music and entertainment for those people. And our niche, I don't know if anyone knows, it's turkey legs. It's going to be the good old-fashioned Flintstone turkey legs is going to be our gimmick, and not going to be turkey testicles or anything like that. I don't know how else people do
Have
it.
that.
I did try one once. That was 20 years ago. I'll never have one again.
Yeah, much better.
Yes. A little more conducive to the holiday season as well, I believe.
And kegs and legs.
Kegs and legs. We've been doing it at Diamond Gyms for the last few years, just on a smaller scale. especially during COVID with the tents and things that we had required for that. We just want to expand it and make it something for the whole town.
Awesome.
Great.
Great.
Looking forward.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Good luck.
Thank you. We'll need it.
Okay, so no other questions, comments? Catherine?
Trustee Coonsey?
Yes.
Trustee Saviano?
Yes.
Trustee Triber?
Yes.
Trustee Sauter?
Yes.
And Trustee Mahoney?
Yes.
Okay, that'll take us to item B, if we could have a motion.
I will move to approve,
Yes.
I will move to approve a resolution memorializing the relationship between the village and William Street Repertory Rouse Center for the Arts for the purposes of progressing towards establishing a performance art venue in the village.
Second.
Okay. Richard, would you like to take the floor? If you're in the audience, maybe you could lead us there.
Absolutely. Hi, everybody. Thanks so very much for putting this on here. It's been almost a decade on our process of trying to find a secondary home and that type of thing. Justin Wellington, our managing director, is here with me today. The board, the staff, the artists, and most importantly, our school, which has been doing great work, is really excited about coming into the area, and it's going to take a lot of process. This is hopefully just the start of probably about 2 years of hard work coming up. So we just wanted to say thank you for moving forward with that, and we're excited.
We are too.
Fingers crossed.
Anybody have any questions, comments? No?
Just more excitement for this coming.
Yeah.
So.
Absolutely. Looking forward.
Oh, thank you. And the Oktoberfest was a blast, too.
Yeah.
It was a lot of
Awesome.
fun.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Anybody questions, comments? No? Catherine?
Trustee Coonsey?
Yes.
Trustee Saviano?
Yes.
Trustee Triber?
Yes.
Trustee Sauter?
Yes.
And Trustee Mahoney?
Yes.
Okay, then that'll take us to item C.
Which we're dropping that one off of this meeting.
Oh, yes.
Oh, this one's being removed?
Yeah.
Oh, all
I
right.
did have a suggestion
Or-
to potentially approve it and keep the door open, or move to hold it for the next meeting, understanding that there's still some
I think the
possibility.
location will change, so we probably need to redo it if it's a new location.
So, can I ask, what was the date they were thinking of starting with the games? I mean, it isn't going to be this year, is it?
It was,
It was.
but there's some wrinkles.
Oh, all right. So do we want to hold off on this one until the
Do
next
you want to
meeting?
move to hold, do you want to remove from the agenda completely, or
We're gonna-
do you want to approve and think that there's still 1% chance that it can move forward?
I mean, it's a hard no on the location, so I think we'd probably have to redo it. So,
Okay. Then
Okay.
we'll just remove it from the agenda.
All right,
Yeah.
we'll go ahead and do that then.
I have to say, though, I do love this artist. I know, I've seen her stuff, and I look for the name and the signature, and
Yeah.
the concept that she does, so I hope you find a great spot for
we're
it.
going to find a follow-up project, but it'd probably be a different location.
Yeah, but we're still very dedicated
Yeah.
to having this very.
And I love the
similar-
fact she's so local, and
Yeah.
Okay, so then that will take us to item D then. If we could, this is just a discussion regarding compliance with the Illinois Lead Line Service Replacement and Notification Act and direction on the development of a program to replace lead service lines. So, Phil, this is your area.
Hoping this will have as good a effect as the last two.
It's pretty exciting, no doubt.
Make it exciting, Phil.
So as we continue our discussion on lead services, I'd like to report a couple things here. We've got approximately 1,400 lead, or water services in the village, of which today, as of late this afternoon, we have 274 lead and galvanized services.
that was the number I was looking for.
Yes, so we have 171 unknowns, and staff will continue actively pursuing survey participation and/or inspections of those locations. We are also trending towards the 300 lead services that we had anticipated prior to initiating the survey. So for this evening, we essentially have two objectives, which are forming a consensus on funding lead service line replacements, and staff's recommendation is that the village would fund those at 100%, and also to initiate soliciting proposals for developing specifications for replacing lead services ahead of our 2025 road construction season. So we've got some projects that we're discussing for our 2025 budget, and ahead of those projects, we would need to, or like to replace all lead services on those roadways. So we'll be providing more information on those projects here in the coming meetings, which would involve the water and sewer rate discussion and then also our budget hearings. So with this, again, this evening are Caitlin and Carolyn. I'll turn it over to Caitlin, who can talk us through the PowerPoint and add some additional information. Any comments or questions, please feel free.
Good evening, everyone. I'm gonna zoom in a little bit because even though I've got my glasses on, apparently I need to go get my prescription checked out a little bit more. So good evening. As Phil said, I'm Caitlin Wright with Baxter & Woodman. I know I presented to you all earlier this year on the lead service lines and kind of what the regulations were requiring for communities. We wanted to come back this evening, give you an update on the general status for the village, as well as kind of what we're seeing local areas doing when it comes to facilitating replacements. So with that, I'm gonna go on down here. As Phil mentioned, we've been really successful with the material inventory so far. Residents have been really responsive to the survey. Village staff have been great about getting into homes and inspecting, and at this point in time, we've determined about 90% of the materials in town, so that's fantastic. As noted, we're between 171, 165 remaining unknowns. We had some surveys come in today, so we're still continuing to update that as we go forward. And at this point in time, there are 260 known lead service lines in town. So as Phil noted, we are kind of going towards that estimated 300. We are in line with that number at this point in time. And we do think that that's where the village is going to sit when we get through the remaining of the inventory process. Now, as a reminder, there have been certain compliance requirements the village has needed to meet throughout the past few years. The first was completing a material inventory and continuing to update that. So we've done that so far this year. We did a submission to the state in April. There will be continual updates to IEPA with that material inventory every April, kind of for the next 10 years, essentially. So that's not going away. We'll continue to update the material inventory as needed. With that material inventory, as you identify lead service lines, if you identify a property that has a galvanized service line that requires replacement, there's specific definitions underneath that, or for locations where there's still unknowns, IEPA as well as US EPA requires a community to provide notification to that property annually until either that lead service line is replaced or the unknown is determined to be non-lead. So the village did complete that this year. We'll do that again next year as needed. And then also, both IEPA and US EPA require communities to develop a draft or a lead service line replacement plan. We did the first draft of that this April. We will be continuing to update that until 2027, where that plan becomes final. At this point in time, we have not received comments from IEPA. They received it. We got notification from them that they received the plan. I have not received comments from IEPA for any communities at this point for the replacement plan, so I'm not entirely sure when we're going to start seeing those comments or what to expect from those. But we will be needing to submit an updated draft to the state in April as well. So each year we'll update the plan until we get to 27 where that becomes final. And as a reminder, that replacement plan is essentially supposed to be a guidebook for the village on how you're going to facilitate replacements. So we look at the number of lead service lines in town, the areas of where those lead service lines are located, how is that going to get financed, and then also getting into the procedures of replacement. So this first draft really just said this is how many we expect to have, this is relatively where they're located in town, and the rest of this the village is still in the process of determining. One final thing to note here for public accessibility, I just want to make note that the village does have their inventory map. This is publicly available. It's on the village's website. A resident can search their address. They can zoom in and click on their address and see what we know about their material for the service line on both the public side and private side. So this information is completely available to all residents in town. They have access to it. And then the village is required underneath federal law to provide notice on where to find that information in their consumer confidence report, which is an annual kind of water quality report that the village does. And the village has already done that this past year and will continue to do it in future years.
I actually clicked on that inventory map link, and it seemed like there were a lot of them that were unknown on the village side that I would have thought we would have known.
Absolutely.
So, the reason, so everything's buried, right? If you think about
I
a water.
understand that,
Yeah.
but for instance, on South Van Buren where we redid the road, there were several actually that were marked either unknown or lead on the village side, which I thought we updated those when we redid South Van Buren.
It might depend on where you're looking on Van Buren. It's about a 3-block space for that 1991 water main replacement. We did recently update about, I don't know if you went in the past week, but we went and updated that about a week ago, looking at the plan set for that. But it is only about 3 blocks where the public side would be copper, and the rest, if it is lead, we are assuming it's lead on the public side.
Well, this was this morning.
This morning? Okay.
And it was what, 2013, 14?
Yeah,
The road was redone?
It was
Okay.
within the last 15 years.
Then I'll coordinate with Phil and
Yeah.
Do you need lead on the private side?
we assume it's lead on the private side if we've gotten information, and then unless we have information from the village, whether that's plans or historical knowledge, that assumption carries all the way through on the public
It
side.
just seems to me as far as an unknown, I don't get it, because you can find out easily just by taking a look at the meter. I mean, what's coming out of the stub, you should know immediately whether it's copper, galvanized, or lead, just by looking at it.
On the private side, correct.
Right.
But the meter's inside the house, so we either have to gain access into the home or get a resident to
Oh.
respond, so.
And once we finish the entire survey and we have 98 or 99% of all services identified, material types, we'll take a look at the entire village as a whole. And it's my understanding that some of the services on Barrington and some of the services on Van Buren in previous water main projects were replaced from the main to the B box. And so we'll take a closer look at that point in time. So the goal is not to make any replacements if we know for a fact that there's no lead there, so.
I mean, finding out about the unknowns, though, isn't going to require any sort of digging or anything like that to determine the line, is it? I mean, it shouldn't, I wouldn't think.
More specifically on the Barrington project that we're proposing for next year, which is the STP-funded project from Van Buren to 68. It's my understanding back in the late 90s, a number of those services from the main to the B-box were in fact replaced. They were lead and replaced with the B-box to the home remaining as is at the time. And so we've talked about potholing or excavating down to expose the B-box to see if it's lead or copper or what the situation is. So that, we're anticipating doing that ahead of that project, just to confirm some of those locations.
All right, okay. I know you indicated, I don't want to get too far ahead of you, because you were talking about the methods for replacement still being a bit of a question mark, but are we gonna, I mean, I looked into this a bit, and you can do a pull-through type where you're just basically running a fish tape and pulling it through the new line. I'm also wondering too about the size. Joe, you probably know, most homes are 3/4, but I don't know what they used to use for lead. If that's bigger, can that just be used as a chase? No. Is it, what, corrosion maybe, or what would be the problem? It wouldn't, okay. So, but I mean,
So-
if you can,
Yeah, there are I would say three main methods for replacing lead service lines, and the pull-through is absolutely a method that we've seen used. They also do directional boring so that you'd have 2 pits essentially.
Yeah.
I would say that that is the most common method that I've seen happen. Because to your point, depending on the service line that you are replacing that lead with, there could be a sizing issue of getting that through the hole that exists there. And also, because lead is so malleable, there's times where it would kink or do a very sharp bend,
Or break.
and your new line, we don't necessarily want to follow that exact same path, just because that wouldn't be ideal for installation. The other more invasive method would be fully excavating. We tend not to want to do that for obvious reasons, but there's certain situations where that's needed.
Okay.
Carpentersville utilized the pull-through option in their
Right.
downtown area.
Yeah, I talked to somebody with it. Yeah, well, the copper is fairly malleable that
It
they
is.
use underground now, so it's probably not any less flexible, if you will, than lead would be. If you can pull through, I would think that the lead would just come out. I mean, it may kink, it may break, you never know, just because of age, but
And that's the great thing when you go through the design process. We can work with the staff and figure out the preferred method for the village and specify that during the construction period. So those are all viable options for the village to complete the replacement.
and it would be copper we replace with, correct? Yeah. Okay.
That would be my recommendation, so.
Oh, PVC.
I will personally be going and looking at the inventory map tomorrow morning to make sure that we get things updated. So Trustee Scott, to address your concerns there, we'll work with Phil and staff to make sure that that information is up to date. So as we were talking, facilitating full lead service line replacements ends up being ultimately where we are going here. That's why we're doing the inventory. That's why there's the replacement plan. This is where we're leading to, is to make sure that replacements are happening. Underneath both state and federal regulations, there's really 3 different timelines or initiations where replacement has to occur. This is when a lead service line is disturbed. So by that I mean you're cutting into the pipe. That could be planned, so like a water main replacement project. That could be there's a leak on a service line and therefore you need to patch that service line. In the event that any of those instances happen, the entire lead service line has to get replaced from the main into the house underneath both state and federal regulations. There's also an instance where, in the event that the village exceeded their 90th percentile sampling results, so this is for lead and copper sampling, in the event that the village exceeded what's called the action level, that's 15 parts per billion. If you've got questions on this, I'll dig into it, but I'm just going to kind of go over it at a high level right now. Underneath federal law, the village would be required to start doing a 3% replacement per year in the event that you saw an exceedance level. And then that's really superseded by Illinois state law in 2027, where your required rate of replacement goes into effect. That's 7% per year. Assuming that 300 number, that would be roughly 21 lead service lines each year for the next 15 years. So in all of these instances, both IEPA and US EPA are looking to the village for you to facilitate, I'm going to emphasize that word, the full replacement of lead service lines. So at the end of the day, the state's looking to the village to make sure this is happening. So there's a financial piece with anything. And I will emphasize that right now, both state and federal regulations do not require a community to pay or finance for the entire replacement. There's nothing in the law that says a community has to finance both public side and private side. We are seeing replacement costs range between $12,000 and $15,000 a piece. I will say that I have seen communities see $8,000. I've seen communities see $25,000. It is definitely a range right now. It depends on the area, depends on the property. No house is the same, so contractors are needing to negotiate that and figure that out at the time. And in the event that a community is looking to use state funding, so the IEPA loan program, IEPA is emphasizing that they expect that entire lead service line to get replaced. So what they're really saying is they don't want a homeowner saying, no, I can't afford to replace this when the state has provided the village funds. So just keeping that in mind. There's really two different ways we're seeing communities going about replacing it or financing this. They're either doing, we're going to pay 100% for both public and private side. Communities in the area that have done that so far are Carpentersville, Barrington, West Dundee, Algonquin, Elgin, and Mount Prospect. Or we're seeing communities do a kind of a split or cost share program where they pay for the entire public side, and then they pay for some set percentage of the private side to help incentivize replacements with the residents. Palatine has a program where they pay up to 66% of the entire replacement, and they cap it at $10,000. Deerfield pays 50%, up to $6,000. So there's different ways that we're seeing communities handle this. I will say that it is trending towards more and more communities paying 100%. Communities that have done cost share programs, the administrative efforts on their end become really tedious in terms of getting residents to participate. There's different ways. Either they're writing checks, or you're doing a payback period, or you're putting something on the water bill, or I've seen communities do something with property taxes, so you put a lien on the property. It gets very tedious when you've got, not just 1 or 5 or 10, you're looking at hundreds. So that is a decision factor there as well.
Well, tedium aside, we're talking about a lot of money for a town like East Dundee, but I understand too, though, that Carpentersville got the bulk of their funding done through the grant program. Is that door shut for us?
No, so they, both Carpentersville, Barrington, West Dundee, and Elgin all went through the Illinois Public Supply Loan Program, Public Water Supply Loan Program. They got a certain percentage of principal forgiveness. I think Barrington got almost 100% principal forgiveness.
So did
Okay. That particular program is no longer, but there is still principal forgiveness. I think it's up to 49%, but we've seen IEPA handle it differently for each community. I will say that the village is eligible. You got the lead service line inventory grant through IEPA, which meant you met the criteria for that. So you are eligible to receive principal forgiveness, but it is a competitive program. So
that criteria,
it's not guaranteed.
That criteria being any means testing? Is that?
Pardon?
The criteria you're talking about, is that like a means test? They'll come in, take a look at our books and say, oh, you guys can afford it, you guys can't?
No.
We're gonna help you,
There's like 7 different criteria that they look at. If you're just considered disadvantaged, which looks at your median household income against the state. It looks at your social security rates in town, unemployment, the number of children underneath the age of, I think, 6 or 7, your percentage of lead service lines against like your non-lead. So there's a lot of different like categories that they look against. It's not coming in and looking at your financials.
Okay. I mean, I have no objection to them taking a look. If they're gonna loan us the money, they can take a peek. It's not a problem. I mean, a lot of these towns got in early. I don't know why we didn't, but they got a free ride,
Yeah.
and on all of us and on everybody. And so my thought is that if you're going to make something like that available, make it available. But now, if we can get 50% of it paid off, forgiven, then I'd certainly like to explore that. But do we need to make sure that we meet a certain amount of completion in order to apply for that or to qualify?
They're going to make sure, no matter what, the state, when we get to 27, they're auditing the village every year to make sure you're meeting that 7%, or at least making an effort to meet that 7% per year. That would not dictate you against going after those funds, but if you said, I'm not doing this, like we got the money and then we didn't do anything with it,
Right.
I think that you would be hard pressed to get the funds the following year.
No, I understand
So.
that. And we want to get it done, we just, got to figure out how to pay for it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
So one final thing here to note is, as Phil was discussing, there's an upcoming streets that are being considered for resurfacing or reconstruction next year. This includes 2nd Street, Adams, it includes Barrington Avenue, which would be using STP funds, and then also a portion of Railroad and 4th Street. These are all still kind of going to be discussed during the budgetary process. But one thing that we want to consider or note here is we're trying to work with the village to figure out, do you want to do lead service line replacements in advance of doing these road programs so that you're not resurfacing the road and then coming back in a year or two or starting in 27 and potentially disrupting the road and creating patchwork quilt in a nicely resurfaced road. So those are part of the reasons we're bringing this to the board this evening, is so that we can start planning appropriately for upcoming infrastructure programs that aren't specifically lead, but impact that replacement process. So with that, I want to open it up to questions. I know we've been already having dialogue, so if there's any additional questions, more than happy to have those.
I have a question, Phil, do in these areas that we want to be resurfacing, do we know how many along those streets have lead service lines that need to be replaced?
We do, and we've worked with Baxter, Woodman, and Caitlin mainly to generate cost estimates that we at staff level will be discussing here this week.
Okay.
For inclusion in the budget, and then.
Can you do you know the number off the top of your head?
I can look them up real quick. Yeah, I can look them up on the computer.
All right. And kind of just taking and looking at big numbers and putting them to dollars and to try and put a frame around this. Taking the high end of the estimates and I know you said it goes from 8,000 to 25,000 depending upon what it is.
I would say 25's rare.
Yeah.
So I don't want you to
Right.
hold on to that.
But if we take the high end
Yeah.
of 15,000 per
that would be my
lead line,
recommendation.
and we're looking, and we were tracking towards 300. We're estimating
Yep.
just off the top 300 that we're looking at a total cost of $4,500,000 for the replacement, and that includes both the main to the B-box and B-box to the house is $15,000 for both. It's not.
Yeah, that's looking at the construction cost,
Yeah,
right? To get
okay.
the pipe in the ground, right? But
Okay.
if you're thinking about if there's design or construction oversight,
So there's more.
inflation, anything along those
Yeah.
lines, there's additional efforts there.
Right. And then just looking at the requirements of 7% per year, and you said 21 service lines, if we're going to try and stay within that, we're looking at about $315,000 a year at $15,000 apiece. So, and as we're looking at budgets and all that kind of stuff, that's where I kind of wanted to try and put a framework and some rough numbers.
Perfect,
I'm
yeah.
not holding you to any of it, but just trying to get a grasp of reality and what our situation is. So, and then my last question is, who is responsible for working on applying for this grant for the budgeting? If we decide, as a board that, yeah, we want to take the route of 100% both sides that the village pays for.
So the village actually is already we've been working with staff to go through that loan process
Oh, great.
for other projects as well, but we brought in the lead service lines.
Okay.
You can always ask the state for money, which we figured we might as well ask them. If they
Yeah.
opt to give it to us, You have the right to say, we don't want to go that route anymore, we're going to do something different.
Right.
So because we're already going through that process for other water infrastructure projects,
Okay.
we went ahead and nested
that's
the lead
already in
service lines, yes.
When you expect it to be completed, or you're just waiting for us to vote?
I believe we've submitted the project plan to IEPA for review, so they take 6 months to review that plan, so there's no vote needed for the village at this point in time for that effort.
We did vote on this already, actually.
Pardon?
We did vote on that.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah, the project plan was submitted on the 30th, which was last Monday.
Oh, okay.
It takes them 6 months to review, so we should hear something by the end of March.
Well, the availability
year.
of state funds at very low rates is the only requirement to obtain those funds is just that we replace the whole line. But as far as reimbursement of that money, we're not restricted by anything. So in other words, we don't have to, the village or any village wouldn't have to say, in order to be able to borrow the money from the state, we have to pay it all. We could do a cost sharing with the residents on that and still get the low funding.
That is correct. So we've gotten, I would say, different information from different people at IEPA. The original understanding was if you were going after those funds, you had to pay for 100%. We have seen in the past year IEPA take a little bit of a step back, I think because of what funds are available. So they are allowing communities, we've heard them say that they're allowing communities to do a cost share program, but that's where I want to emphasize that they still want to see that entire service line replaced. So if a homeowner said, I can't afford this cost share program, that doesn't sit well with IEPA because they've given you money to do the replacement. So that's where you need to be working with those homeowners to help make that happen or facilitate it.
It's going to be a very difficult thing if it's over a 3-year period. I mean, everyone can cry poverty at any time along the way. And so, and it could be legitimate too. I mean, you know, life happens and finances dictate. We all know that. But so what they agreed to today may not be, you know, viable tomorrow. So how do we protect ourselves?
I don't disagree, and I don't envy the position communities are in right now.
But
But
what does the state require? I mean, this is a mandate on their part that we do this, and if it is, that's fine, but they need to at least be able to, you know, be willing to work with us on this, if not from a 50% reimbursement guaranteed to at least some wiggle room in the event those things happen. I mean, we can't read the future any better than they can, so.
Which is why I think everyone's trending towards paying 100%
Well,
government, because
true.
it's logistically impossible to, well, I mean, you could kick people out of their homes if they don't pay it, and we're still good because we replaced it whether or not they wanted us to. We need their permission, and we're going to lose a lot of people on the opt-out as soon as it's optional, because people can't afford 15 grand at every home.
Well, who can? I understand that, but if we're being told we have to do this, that's fine, but then finances are gonna dictate on how this is done. We can't just point to the administrative nightmare that this might present as a reason why we want to just pick it all up, because it's easier to deal with it in a spreadsheet and go through all this madness on an individual account basis. We're talking about a fair and equitable use of the public funds here.
Not
You know, so I mean, and when I receive a call from somebody who's in a house that's 5 years old and says, why am I paying for a house that's 105 years old, what do I tell them?
Well, you could tell them that we don't actually fund our general fund through property taxes, so they're not paying for
They're
it.
not.
We pay
No, I'm talking
general
about
through
this
sales
project
tax.
here.
I understand.
Yeah.
I understand. You do realize that we do not fund our general fund through property taxes, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
no,
so
and
this
it's
will be
fine.
paid through a bond, which
Right.
means we don't pay for bonds through property taxes either.
Well, no, I understand that, but it's
Okay.
gotta have to be paid some way. I don't care which pocket you take the money out of, and I
Right.
don't think the guy who's asking the question as to why with a brand-new home I have to pay for the old home is caring which pocket you take it out
But
of
he's
either.
not paying it.
Because he's not paying for it.
So
Yeah,
that's the
just-
narrative.
Well,
doesn't it?
somebody is, so
It's
we
not
can,
him.
you
Well,
know.
maybe it's the sales taxes, which the businesses are getting a parking garage to increase sales. And those
Okay.
increased sales taxes are helping the community as well.
Well, then
It's the
that is
cost
some-
of
that is
an-
half,
it's an
or
important
maybe a little
role.
more than half of a parking garage
Yeah.
is what this costs. And we're not charging these businesses who really needed the parking garage. So I see safe drinking water as a much higher priority than
No one's arguing
convenience
that,
in
Andy.
parking.
No, I get that. No one's arguing that.
I
That's
just
what
think
it
it's
costs
important
less
to
than-
de-escalate people and not continue to rile them.
That's a
by
good
s-
point.
like, I think that
Yeah.
that's
I'm
what
not-
that was.
Right.
Mm.
If I could just add too, I know the city of Elgin in recent years, they had a loan program where I believe for the private side, the village would pay for the initial replacement, but then they developed a loan program where they had their own between the homeowner and the city, kind of a loan arrangement, but I think they've gone away from that. I'm pretty sure it wasn't as
Elgin's
effective as they had
situation's a lot
hoped.
different. They've got thousands of homes.
I mean, that's
They do,
really
they have
the,
4,000 plus homes, yeah.
the big picture of this is if it's in the range of 4.5 million, you know, we have, what, 15 years-ish?
I'll
And
put an asterisk on that. There is a federal law out there right now where this
Yes.
could get reduced to 10.
it
but,
could.
um,
But $4.5 million, you know, our pension deficit is around $10 million. So this is not, you know, we can't think about trying to come up with $4.5 million tomorrow, but we can think about coming up with $4.5 million over the next 10 years. And when we talk about how to fund this, which we will talk about as part of the budget process, you know, we have a lot of ideas. We've talked about, you know, water and sewer rates, whether or not we want to keep those flat, whether or not we want to increase those. We are in a good position to get this IEPA loan funding, which is a low-interest loan, which will tremendously help our capability to make progress on this. We've talked about a gas tax. We've got some other economic development opportunities in the pipeline. Really what we want to get out of today is, let's make a decision. Do we want to fund 100%? Do we want to fund 50%? With 275 lines that we know of right now and maybe 50 more, you know, the amount of time, staff time that would take to develop a loan program and manage a loan program, like, we'd have to,
And take away from the other projects.
it would take away
and
from other
things.
projects. So, you know, we're going to do whatever the board directs us to do, but we've been trending towards trying to get to a decision point on this for the past year.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, as far as 100% funding goes, in order to be able to qualify for state funding on this, we have to agree to pay for the whole line, right?
Yeah.
From the main to the house, in order to be able to qualify for the low-interest loans, correct?
You do not have to, that is not a requirement anymore. So,
The state isn't requiring that we replace the whole line?
no, they have stated,
but
both at a
facilitate
state
the
conference,
entire line.
you have to facilitate the
Right,
replacement of the entire.
we have to
line.
do it up front and we could collect money afterwards.
Yeah, they want to make sure that
So yes,
the
he is
service line.
correct that we have to do 100% upfront. And then if we get money from other people, residents, we can do that afterwards, but we have to be in charge of getting it done 100%.
I mean, that
Right.
would be my recommended method of going about it, but the state has said that you could do a cost share program underneath this. That would make the construction process much more smooth. It's one transaction to
Right.
make sure the replacement is happening. But you could have it where it's, the
Okay.
private side is
I mean,
writing a
Why
check.
don't we do this? Can we just take a straw, like, I don't know if we want to call it straw poll, but is there anybody on the board, the village board, that objects to paying for 100% of the lead line replacement?
Well, when you talk about
No.
paying
Well,
100%.
okay,
what do you
wait,
mean?
let's
No.
just ask everyone.
We're
No,
doing
no,
a straw
no, you
poll.
need to qualify it. Are you talking about paying 100% the reimbursement of monies that are borrowed to do it? Or are you talking about we do the entire project up front and then worry about the reimbursement later?
No, I'm saying
saying
we
the
just pay
resident does not
100%.
Pay
Covering it
100%.
the same way that the towns around us have
Exactly.
paid
Yeah.
100%
Same way
without
all of our
reimbursement.
neighbors are having it done. I'm not going to go to my residents and say, oh, well, West Dundee did pay 100%, Carpentersville did pay 100%, but we're not going to do that because our village president doesn't want us to.
No, wait
So,
a minute, I'm
I'm
not
going
letting you
to
lay
s-
that at my feet, Scott. We're talking about being able to pay for it, not the personal position.
All right, so
I mean,
again,
Okay, so
it's
straw poll.
Finance
can
is
we
what
just
it
ask
is.
that question that I just asked? Is there anybody that objects to that?
No.
Yes, I object to
No.
it. I mean,
People
I
on
think
the
there
board
should be
for-
some
for
sort of
So-
cost-sharing program.
No, I don't
involved.
object, especially since we
I
said
didn't think so.
we didn't ask any of the businesses to help chip in on the parking garage that they've been barraging the village.
Yes, but there's a difference,
About-
Kathleen.
No, there
Yes,
isn't.
there absolutely
No,
is.
there
Yes, there
isn't.
is. You're talking about the benefit of the process here. Everybody has the opportunity to use that garage. I don't have the opportunity to use my neighbor's water line. And now you're asking me or anybody else who doesn't have an older home to pay for it. And there's a difference. You
That is
have to
such
at
a
least acknowledge
polarizing
that.
mentality. That is so polarizing.
It
is
I think we should call
polarizing.
the
It's
question
called
and do
equity.
the vote. We already know.
I mean, you've changed your mind because you were the deciding vote on the facade improvement program, giving 20 grand to a private business to update their brand colors on a building
On a
that
perfectly
wasn't
fine building.
But that
decrepit
was-
in any way.
But we're talking about a moral
But that
equivalency
was
here that
20
makes no
grand
sense.
for a private person who, like, this is, you're saying that's the issue, is it can't go to somebody who everyone can enjoy it, but this is what happens with most of the things we spend money on.
No, if you don't want to continue something like the facade improvement program, this board has the power to do that.
I mean, you
If we
had no
put that
problem
sort of
with
thing in
that,
place
so
and we
how is
budget for
this
it, then we have to
different?
allow the money to be spent. We put up a program, if people take advantage of it, that's one thing. If we want to put together a program like this, we can do that too. But tell me what we're going to do though, before we go ahead and vote on paying everything, how are we going to handle the person that doesn't want to take advantage of it at all?
And we
Because there's
said
another-
exactly how,
that's a
but this is
different
what's
question
frustrating to me
altogether.
is the board just agreed. We have a straw poll consensus, so now it's a waste of time.
Oh, okay. Wow. Oh, I didn't mean to waste your time.
Thank you.
Jesus.
Is there anything else you need, Phil?
At this point, no, it sounds like,
There's a direction that's been provided.
Yeah,
Yes.
nope, I don't believe so. Russ.
in for a penny,
Good to
in
move
for a
forward.
pound.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Alrighty, so, well, that's our discussion. We got our direction on that, so we're good to go. That'll take us next to reports. I'll just start out by saying on Saturday night, I attended the Northern King County Chamber of Commerce Awards Dinner, the banquet. We presented Phil Alio an award for his service to the community and the work that he's done through the historic preservation of all the area towns that he's worked with. And it was very well attended and very well received, so I was honored to be part of it. And that is actually about all I have. So we'll start with Andy.
No report.
Trish. Rich.
No report.
Scott.
No report.
Wow. Kathleen. Oh, she's breaking the cycle.
Yeah, I sure am.
Okay.
You know me. Chief, I hope you can cover a little bit more detail about this, the department going up for a scholarship for Northwestern University. Andy posted it.
Sure.
And I don't have Facebook, but if we can put that out on our newsletter or whatever, if you put it up on LinkedIn, it is up there already? Great. And then vote so that we can get some more of our officers trained up. And then Oktoberfest was great, thanks to Public Works, thanks to everyone involved on getting that up and going and making it another great success inside the village and outside the village as well. It was really well attended, having worked there on Friday night. And I think that's, and we do have a community events meeting next week. And General Village committee meeting next week. So we'll be looking at recapping all of the village events and looking forward to kind of a recap from you guys who always do a great job with that. That's all I have.
Great. I would like to just add one, actually two other items. One is just to extend an enormous amount of appreciation to everybody who worked for the Oktoberfest. It was run, very well organized, very well received. Everybody was well behaved. It was a real success. And, you just really have to work that event or anything that size to get an appreciation of how much work goes into it. And so I'd just like to recognize Catherine and everybody on staff for doing that. And then also, quickly, Dame Dolores Doderline's 99th birthday was yesterday. So if you would like to, just extend to her a happy birthday, and she's already planning 100. So that's going to be in the downtown. So, and then we'll go to village attorney. Which of our...
No report.
No report? Oh, beautiful. Joe?
No report.
Chief?
To discuss what Kathleen was talking about, one of our vendors is called Uso Bio. Uso Bio is the vendor that cleans our cells for us, cleans any type of biohazard situation we might have in a squad car. They co-op with a program called Elevate Blue. Elevate Blue holds a scholarship program that would fund the cost for one of our sergeants to attend Northwestern School of Police Staff and it's about a $4,400 scholarship. Right. So we, BARB, our submitted it for us. And they drew our name, so we were one of the finalists. So what it requires is us to do some social media work. I mean, they get some advertising out of it, right?
Sure.
But if we get the most votes, then we would have that scholarship.
It'd be great. Easy
Thank you,
peasy.
Chief. Bill? No report. Brandis? All right, and then lastly, Erica? No report. Okay, we are going to go into a brief executive session to discuss, I believe, was pending litigation, and what was the other one? Did you say there was another item? No, that's it? Okay, so I will entertain a motion to adjourn into an executive session. Close to the public and media under the provisions of the Illinois Open Meetings Act at 5 ILCS. This was going to be 120/2C11 pending litigation.
Second.
And not returning to...
Right, we're going to adjourn. What?
So moved.
Oh, yeah. Amy.
Second.
And we're not
Okay.
returning to public session.
Correct, we're going to adjourn. So,
Trustee Coonsey?
Kathy.
Yes.
Trustee Saviano?
Yes.
Trustee Triber?
Yes.
Trustee Sauter?
Yes.
Trustee Mahoney?
Yes.
And President Lineham.
Yes. Okay, well, I thank y'all for coming tonight. We'll see you in 2 weeks,
I would
right?
like to actually
Something
take
like that?
5 days.
That's fine.
All right.